CBC News continuing with our ongoing series, Learning Curve, the impact COVID-19 and 2 years under a pandemic, 2 years plus, has had on your children. This morning, the focus, lockdowns, distancing, the impact that has had on friendships. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson's been bringing us such interesting findings. What are parents and experts saying about kids' abilities to socialize, Deanna, after 2 years of isolation?
Heather, you're absolutely right. We've been hearing so much about this, and every time we do a story, so many people write to us and share their own experiences. So obviously, we're nearing the end of the third school year right now affected by the pandemic. And while this school year, 2021-2022, was a little bit better, the previous one had very long lockdowns during which schools were shut and everything pretty much moved online, especially for kids here in Ontario, which had some of the longest school closures throughout North America, actually. And obviously that has had an impact on those friendships that are so important for children's and teens' development. I mean, we all remember when you're a teenager, your friends are your life. So all of the things conspired, like schools moved online, but there were also other things. For example, for some children, their sports teammates are their tribe, really that place where they belong, or they could be part of a dance troupe. Those things were largely closed. So for a lot of children and teens, it was a real cut off from that social nutrition. In fact, one pediatrician we interviewed called what has happened over the last 2 years social malnutrition, Heather.
That is a great way to describe it. So how do we change the diet? If we're going to work along with that analogy, what do we do to patch up or help the kids patch up these friendships, Deanna?
That's a great way to put it. How do we change up the diet? So the experts we spoke to, by the way, I should mention, are far more worried about the teens than they are about smaller children. For smaller children, they say they're seeing some cognitive delays, some small developmental delays, like a delay in speech, but they feel that these can be overcome if a child ends up going to daycare or kindergarten now. With teens, they're really concerned. We know that eating disorders are exceptionally high right now, mental health problems, substance abuse, so they're really asking teachers and parents to be mindful, to really try to open up those channels of conversation with the teens, as difficult as it may be, to try to sort of pry them out of the room and off their devices and to get them hanging out with their friends again. The pediatrician I spoke to, Dr. Saba Merchant, who's a pediatrician here in Ontario, she was one of the proponents of the opening up of schools. And she said she is aware of the fact that sending a child to in-person schooling in those provinces where virtual is still an option, and Ontario is one of the few that still has that option left, she is very pro sending children to in-person schooling. However, she's aware that some families' health situations might not allow for that some people still don't feel safe about that. So here's her tip if you are maybe not so sure about sending your kid to school quite yet. Have a listen.
So, I would say, it might be possible to have a social bubble, to have 1 or 2 kids that you can interact with. It has an immense impact on the feeling of well-being. Just meeting with your friend. Human beings are social beings at the end of the day. Their well-being depends on interacting with other people. And yes, we have now been through this. This is over 2 years.
That's social malnutrition and sort of how to fix it. So she does recommend for people who might still be leery about, let's say, sending their child to a soccer camp or enrolling them in larger groups over the summer. She said, have that bubble with just 1 or 2 kids so that kids can see each other, maybe outdoors now that the weather is a little bit better, and just reestablish some of the emotional and mental health benefits of those budding little friendships.
Deanna, thank you so much. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson this morning.